Imagine you are like right in the middle of a tense, escalating argument with your partner.
Oh, that is never a fun place to be.
Right. The stakes feel incredibly high, your heart is racing, and you are desperately trying to find the absolute perfect sequence of words to make them understand your perspective.
And your brain is just spinning.
Exactly. But the absolute best, most effective thing you could do in that exact moment to save your relationship might actually be to just turn around, walk away, shut your bedroom door, and take a 20-minute nap.
Which sounds completely insane in the moment.
It really does.
Well,
But welcome to today's deep dive. We're going to explore a deeply counterintuitive concept today. The idea that to be a better partner or a more reliable friend or a stabilizing force in your family, you need to radically start focusing on them for a second.
yeah, and aggressively focus on yourself.
Yes. And I know you, the listener, might be thinking that sounds entirely selfish.
It is a complete paradigm shift. I mean, we are socially and culturally conditioned to believe that love and care are synonymous with constant, unwavering sacrifice. The idea of retreating to take care of yourself when someone else, quote-unquote, needs you feels like a fundamental betrayal of the relationship contract.
And to guide us through dismantling that exact belief, we are pulling our insights today straight from the Weddizer website.
Which is such a great resource.
It really is. Now, if you are familiar with Weddizer, you might immediately associate it with bridal content or event planning, but they actually have this incredibly robust repository for relationship and social etiquette purposes.
Yeah, it's surprisingly deep.
So if you dig into the article section on their website related to this niche, you find high-level relationship guidance that deals with the actual day-to-day mechanics of long-term social health.
And the specific piece we are looking at today is titled, Prioritizing Self-Care to Show Up Better in Relationships.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to answer one core question for you. How do we shake the deep-seated guilt associated with taking time for ourselves, and instead learn to leverage self-care as a foundational strategic tool for, well, biological diplomacy?
Biological diplomacy. I love that. That is the perfect phrase for it. And I think we have to start by validating the guilt that you, the listener, probably feel right now.
Oh, absolutely. The guilt is so real.
It is. If you are juggling the whirlwind of modern life, your career demands, social commitments, family logistics, self-care usually feels like a luxury you simply cannot afford.
It feels expendable, like the first thing you drop when things get busy.
Exactly. But the core theme established right out of the gate in the Weddizer's source material is that self-care is not an indulgence. It is preventative relationship maintenance.
Right, because before we can ask you to implement any of the optimization strategies we're going to discuss today, we really have to rewrite that selfish narrative completely.
We have to dismantle it.
Yeah, and while reading the article, I realized the old metaphor of, you can't pour from an empty cup just doesn't really capture the complexity of modern relationships anymore.
It's a bit outdated.
It is. It's more like computer RAM. Think of your emotional availability like the random access memory on your laptop. Your relationship, meaning your ability to deploy deep empathy, active listening, and conflict resolution, is like a massive, heavy piece of video editing software.
Oh, that is a fantastic analogy. And you cannot run that heavy relationship software if you have 40 browser tabs open and running in the background.
Exactly. You just can't. Those background tabs are your unmanaged work stress, your sleep debt, your financial anxieties, and, frankly, the endless news cycle.
Just quietly eating up all your processing power.
Right. So if you try to open the heavy empathy program when your RAM is totally maxed out, the system lags, the fan starts screaming, and eventually the whole computer just crashes to a blue screen.
Yeah, you completely shut down.
So self-care isn't about running away from the computer. It is forcing a system reboot to clear the RAM so the software can actually function.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, prioritizing self-care is literally enhancing your emotional intelligence by freeing up that cognitive bandwidth.
Making space in the brain.
Exactly. When your RAM is cleared out, your prefrontal cortex, which is the logical reasoning part of your brain, stays online.
It doesn't crash.
Right. You have the actual processing speed to recognize and regulate your own emotional state before you react to your partner. If you are totally drained, that logical hardware just shuts down to conserve energy.
Because you're in survival mode.
Yes. And you default to the amygdala, which is the reactionary, defensive, reptilian part of your brain.
And that is exactly when a minor irritation, like, I don't know, someone forgetting to buy milk, escalates into a massive screaming match about respect.
Which was never actually about the milk.
Never about the milk. The Weddizer article specifically frames this as managing your baseline stress, so tension doesn't just spill over into your interactions. But let's look at where this bandwidth is actually generated.
This is where the source gets really interesting.
Yeah, because it makes a really surprising pivot here. I mean, I expected a relationship etiquette guide to start with, like communication hacks, right?
Like I statements or active listening.
Exactly. But it starts with physical health, sleep, nutrition, movement. Now, I do have to push back a little bit here.
Okay, let's hear it.
Are we really saying that my inability to calmly discuss household finances with my partner is just because I skipped lunch? I mean, that feels like a massive oversimplification of complex interpersonal dynamics.
It sounds overly simplistic until you examine the actual biological reality of how the brain interprets physical states.
Okay, lay it on me.
Your physical well-being directly dictates your emotional baseline. They are not two separate systems. They are a single, continuous, bidirectional feedback loop.
So the mind and body are just constantly talking to each other.
Exactly. Let's take your skip lunch example.
Mm.
If your blood sugar crashes because you haven't fueled your body with nutrient-rich meals, your brain interprets that biological deficit as a literal survival threat.
Wait, really? So the brain doesn't know the difference between we are starving in the wilderness and we just forgot to eat a sandwich because we were on a Zoom call?
Exactly. It just senses a lack of resources, so it immediately triggers a stress response. Cortisol floods your system.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and your tolerance for frustration absolutely plummets because your body is trying to conserve energy for survival, not for nuanced emotional diplomacy. We call it being hangry. But physiologically, it is your biology actively overriding your ability to be empathetic.
That's wild.
And the exact same goes for sleep deprivation. If you are chronically underslept, your amygdala becomes hyperreactive.
That's the reptilian brain again.
Right. It loses its connection to the prefrontal cortex, which normally acts as the brakes.
Yeah.
So you literally, biologically, perceive neutral comments or ambiguous facial expressions from your partner as hostile attacks.
So when my partner says, did you take the dog out? And I immediately snap back, why are you always criticizing my schedule? That's not actually a relationship problem at all.
Not at all.
That is a circadian rhythm and sleep debt problem masquerading as a relationship problem.
Precisely. You are trying to solve a hardware malfunction with a software patch. It just won't work.
That makes so much sense.
The actionable advice from the source is to secure that physical baseline first. Schedule daily movement, even just a 20-minute walk, to burn off that stagnant cortisol.
Just get the blood moving.
Exactly. Eat meals that stabilize blood sugar. Stick to a consistent sleep schedule to allow your neurochemistry to reset. When your body feels safe, regulated, and nourished, you naturally possess the biological resources required to be a patient, present partner.
Okay, so we're clearing out the physical RAM, but then the article moves to the mental environment. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, it highlights that limiting your exposure to negative news and social media overwhelm is a critical, non-negotiable form of self-care.
And this is arguably the most vital optimization for the modern era. I mean, we consume so much distressing digital information that our nervous systems are locked in a constant state of low-grade alarm.
I've totally noticed this in my own life. If I spend 45 minutes doom scrolling on my phone before my partner walks through the door, I am already vibrating with anxiety. But why does looking at a screen make me a worse listener in my own living room?
Because the human brain did not evolve to process global 2047 digital trauma. When you doom scroll, your brain cannot distinguish between a threat on a screen from thousands of miles away and a physical predator standing right in front of you.
So it treats a bad news article like a tiger in the room.
Exactly. It processes the visual input of crisis as an immediate environmental danger. Your sympathetic nervous system activates the fight or flight response. Your heart rate variability drops.
Which means I'm tense before the conversation even starts.
Right. So when your partner walks in and just wants to talk about their day, your empathy reserves are completely depleted. You have literally pre-exhausted your compassion on strangers on the internet.
You are operating in a state of perceived environmental threat, so of course you can't be vulnerable and open. You're bracing for an attack.
Exactly. You're on the defensive.
So how do we manually override that? The source material recommends things like meditation or deep breathing exercises. And, I know those terms can sound a bit cliche to some people, but from a purely mechanical standpoint, what is actually happening there?
It is entirely mechanical, which is the beauty of it. Deep diaphragmatic breathing physically stimulates the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve.
Yeah, this is a primary nerve that wanders from your brainstem all the way down through your abdomen, constantly reporting the state of your internal organs back to your brain.
Like an internal news feed.
Exactly. If you are breathing shallowly into your chest, which happens when we are stressed or staring at screens, the vagus nerve reports panic to the brain.
Oh, I see.
But if you intentionally take slow, deep breaths, extending the exhale, the vagus nerve acts as the body's braking system. It signals to your brain that the environment is safe. It manually shifts your nervous system out of sympathetic fight or flight and into the parasympathetic rest and digest state.
It's essentially sending a biological all-clear signal.
Yes, exactly. It enhances mental clarity and drastically reduces the ambient anxiety. When your mind is biologically focused and calm, you can engage in conversations with genuine, unforced empathy.
You aren't just waiting for your turn to speak, you have the actual bandwidth to hear them.
Precisely.
Okay, so if our internal hardware is optimized, the vagus nerve is engaged, and the RAM is cleared out,
Yeah.
how do we stop other people from immediately opening 15 new tabs in our brain?
Ah, that is the big question.
Right. This brings us to the external defense mechanisms, specifically how we interact with others based on this newly fortified foundation. The Weddizer article leans heavily into emotional processing and boundaries.
Which is such a crucial step.
It is, but I have to challenge the conventional wisdom here again. If the whole point of this etiquette guide is to optimize for deep social connection, shouldn't a boundary be the exact opposite of what we want?
How do you mean?
Well, setting a boundary sounds like building a brick wall to keep your partner out. Aren't romantic relationships supposed to be about, total transparency and unrestricted access?
That is the exact misconception that causes so much guilt, and it is honestly why so many well-intentioned people burn out. What's fascinating here is that the article flips this assumption entirely.
So it's not a wall.
No, not at all. Boundaries do not keep people out. Boundaries are the clearly defined rules of engagement that allow people to safely come in. They protect your energy to ensure the relationship remains respectful, sustainable, and entirely free of resentment.
Okay, so it's less like a brick wall and more like a fence with a very clearly marked gate.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it. I love that.
Yeah.
If you have no boundaries regarding your time, your emotional bandwidth, or your physical space, you will inevitably overextend yourself.
Because you're just saying yes to everything.
Right. And the source material highlights the acute danger here. Suppressing your own needs to constantly accommodate someone else's emotional state inevitably breeds resentment.
Oh, 100%.
You might tell yourself you're being a selfless, wonderful partner, but that suppressed emotion doesn't just disappear. It ferments. It turns into irritability, passive aggression, or just sudden emotional withdrawal.
Which is incredibly confusing for the partner. You start keeping this silent scorecard, you think, look at all the peace and quiet I'm sacrificing for you, even though they never actually asked you to sacrifice it.
Exactly. They have no idea you're doing it. Communicating your limits prevents those silent resentments from forming. It provides architectural clarity to the relationship.
So it's actually kinder.
It is infinitely kinder and more honest to say, I really want to support you and hear about this issue, but I am entirely depleted from work and need 30 minutes of quiet time to transition before I can be a good listener. That is so much better than forcing yourself to sit there while silently seething with irritation.
Because you are taking total ownership of your emotional state rather than making it their fault that you feel droned.
Yeah.
And the Weddizer guide gives very specific, actionable mechanisms for this emotional self-care. It doesn't just say process your feelings, it suggests journaling or seeking therapy for perspective. But let's focus on journaling for a second. If I am upset, why does writing it down with a pen make me a better partner than just venting about it out loud?
It all comes down to how the brain organizes information.
Okay, neuro-nerd time. Let's do it.
When you are ruminating on an emotion, it exists as an abstract, chaotic cloud of distress in the right hemisphere of your brain and the amygdala.
Just floating around causing panic.
Right. It feels overwhelming because it lacks structure. The mechanical act of journaling, forcing yourself to translate that chaotic emotion into specific vocabulary and arranging those words into linear sentences on a piece of paper, well, it forces the logical language processing centers of your left hemisphere and your prefrontal cortex to engage.
Oh, wow. So you're literally forcing a neurological handoff from the panic center to the logic center.